My brother and I were spending the weekend at our new house. It was a large, old house, full of spacious rooms and antique furniture. That night, we decided to stay up late and play video games in one of the upstairs rooms. We started playing around 11 p.m., engrossed in a virtual world filled with adventure and excitement. We didn't pay attention to the time passing until it was 1 a.m. Suddenly, we heard a strange sound coming from the backyard. At first, we didn't take it seriously. We thought it was just the sound of an animal or the wind blowing. But as time passed, the sound grew louder, and we could hear sounds like light footsteps on the grass. We kept playing, trying to ignore the sounds, but a sense of anxiety began to creep into our hearts. Suddenly, I saw a shadow moving behind the window. I jumped up from my seat quickly and looked outside, but I didn't see anything. I went back to playing, but the shadow reappeared. This time, it was clearer. I saw a tall, black figure moving back and forth behind the window. I felt fear grip me, and my brother stopped playing too. We looked at each other with eyes full of fear, and then we decided to investigate. We put the game aside and got up slowly, sneaking towards the window. Our hearts pounded rapidly in our chests. We were breathing heavily, afraid to attract the attention of anyone who might be in the garden. We reached the window and peered through the glass. We saw nothing at first, but after a few moments, we spotted a figure standing in the shadows, watching the house. He was tall, dressed in black, and his face was obscured by a hood. Terror gripped us, and we froze in place. We didn't know what to do. Should we open the window and confront him? Should we run and call the police? We exchanged glances, unable to make a decision. And suddenly, the figure began to move towards the house. He approached the window and started tapping on it with his finger. We screamed in fear and ran away from the window. We were trembling with terror, searching for a place to hide. My brother and I dashed into an adjacent room, slamming the door shut behind us. We were panting in fear, unsure of what to do. My brother remembered his cell phone and pulled it out of his pocket. He immediately called the police and recounted the incident. As we waited for the police to arrive, we huddled on the floor, terrified and confused. We tried to calm ourselves down, but fear held us in its grip. Abruptly, we heard a loud sound emanating from the playroom. It seemed as if the figure had broken the window and entered the house. Panic surged through us, and we thought our end had come. But we refused to give up. My brother recalled the existence of an emergency exit on the upper floor, leading to the rooftop. With trembling limbs, we arose and cautiously opened the bedroom door. The hallway remained eerily silent, and we made the perilous decision to flee. Silently, we crept along the corridor, our footsteps muffled by the thick carpet. Ascending the narrow staircase, we reached the rooftop and flung open the emergency door, emerging into the cool night air. Darkness enveloped us, but a distant glimmer of light beckoned from the street below. With renewed hope, we sprinted towards the beacon, praying it would guide us to safety. As we ran, a chilling sound pierced the silence, the heavy tread of footsteps echoing behind us. We dared a glance over our shoulders and saw the figure relentlessly pursuing us, a menacing glint of steel flashing in his hand. Panic surged through our veins, propelling us forward with a desperate urgency. Reaching the street, we spotted an approaching car, its headlights slicing through the darkness. Frantically, we waved our arms, and the car mercifully screeched to a halt. We scrambled inside, slamming the doors shut, and the vehicle sped away from the ominous house. Casting a final look back, we saw the figure standing at the curb, his face contorted in a mask of fury. But fear no longer held us captive. We were safe. Arriving at the police station, we recounted our harrowing tale to the officers. They immediately launched a manhunt, and within a short time, the perpetrator was apprehended. Relief washed over us as news of his capture reached our ears, yet the shock of the ordeal lingered. We had learned a valuable lesson: never to ignore strange noises or shadows, especially in the cloak of night. In the aftermath of this terrifying incident, we made the resolute decision to sell the house and relocate elsewhere. The thought of returning to that abode, now tainted by the memory of violence, was unbearable. As we embarked on a new chapter in our lives, we carried with us a newfound appreciation for the fragility of life and the importance of vigilance. The chilling encounter had forever etched itself into our minds, a stark reminder of the darkness that can lurk within the shadows. Before we continue, if you liked the video, subscribe to the channel and share the video so we can continue creating more stories. The town of the fog was as silent as death, enveloped in a thick darkness like a black cloak. There were only a few inhabitants, living their lives in simplicity and peace. One day, my friend Omar and I decided to spend a pleasant evening at the only arcade in town. It was nearing midnight, and there were only the two of us and the owner, Mr. Hakim, in the arcade. We started playing an exciting video game, immersed in a virtual world full of adventures and thrills. We didn't notice the passage of time until the place suddenly fell silent. We looked up from our game screens to see Mr. Hakim standing in the corner of the room, staring at us with strange and frightening eyes. We felt a chill run down our spines and tried to ignore his suspicious looks, but to no avail. Mr. Hakim continued to stare at us without blinking, while a heavy silence filled the room. We felt tension rising in our hearts, as if some danger was threatening us. We tried to return to our game, but our focus was scattered. We no longer enjoyed the game, but instead watched Mr. Hakim with caution and anticipation. Suddenly, the lights in the living room went out, and we were enveloped in pitch darkness. We screamed in fear and looked around to see what had happened. We didn't see Mr. Hakim anywhere, and we felt terror grip us. We tried to open the door to get out, but found it locked. We were trapped in a dark living room, with a vague sense of danger looming over us. We tried to calm ourselves down, but our fear grew stronger and stronger. As we were trapped in the darkness, we heard the sound of footsteps approaching us. Fear gripped us, and we froze in place. Mr. Hakim emerged from the shadows, holding a knife in his hand. He grinned wickedly and said in a soft, chilling voice, "Your time has come." We realized then that Mr. Hakim was no ordinary person, but a dangerous madman who wanted to kill us. We tried to run away from him, but he was much faster than us. He chased us through the dark living room, while we screamed in terror and searched for any escape route. We remembered a small window at the top of the wall, so we tried to climb it. My friend Omar managed to reach the window and escape the living room, but I was not so lucky. Mr. Hakim grabbed me by the throat and began to squeeze it tightly. I felt my breath being cut off, and that death was imminent. But then, at that moment, I heard a gunshot from the window. Mr. Hakim fell to the ground, drenched in his own blood. Omar had called the police, who arrived in time and saved me from certain death. Mr. Hakim was apprehended and taken to the hospital, where he was diagnosed as a dangerous mentally ill patient. We were immensely relieved to have escaped death, but we couldn't forget that horrific night. The gym closed its doors permanently after that incident, becoming a terrifying memory in our minds. We learned a harsh lesson from this experience. We shouldn't trust strangers and should always be cautious, especially in dark and desolate places. Years after that incident, I still remember it vividly, as if it happened yesterday. That experience taught me the true meaning of fear and made me appreciate the value of life more than anything else.